Have you ever loved someone so deeply that losing them felt like losing yourself? Have you ever asked, why do I fall for people who don't choose me back? Or why does this pain feel so personal, so familiar? If so, you're not alone, and this video was made for you. What if I told you that heartbreak isn't the end of your story? It's the beginning of your awakening. This isn't just another video about love and loss. It's a deeply emotional journey that will help you understand why some relationships shake your soul, why certain people trigger wounds you didn't even know were there, and how those moments of pain are signs that your true self is trying to emerge. In this video, you'll discover the real reason you feel so attached, the hidden psychological patterns at play, and how breaking free from emotional dependency could be the most loving thing you ever do for yourself. You'll hear a powerful story, not just of heartbreak, but of healing, transformation, and reclaiming your worth. Stay until the end, because the final message will not only speak to your heart, it might just rewrite your entire love story. Ready? Let's begin. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. Carl Jung once said that people meet only when they have already found themselves. And honestly, that line hits deep. It's not just a poetic phrase, it's a profound truth that sits at the very core of what it means to truly connect with someone. How can we ever recognize real love if we're still strangers to our souls? The truth is, we live in a world obsessed with finding the one. We ask ourselves constantly, is this person right for me? But let's be honest, most of the time, we're asking from a place of fear, emptiness, or longing. We look for signs in their words, in the timing, in their touch, when what we should be doing is listening to the whisper of our soul, that quiet, steady voice that only emerges after we've dared to look at ourselves, not just the light, but the shadows too. Jung didn't view love as some external magic that strikes like lightning. No, for him, love was a sacred result of a deeper journey, the path of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who we truly are. That's why he spoke of love not as fate, but as consequence, a consequence of the work we do in the quiet of our hearts. He once said, "There's no awakening of consciousness without pain, and I believe that with everything in me, because love real, soul-shifting love doesn't come to coddle us. It comes to awaken us. And that awakening doesn't always look like butterflies and poetry. Sometimes it looks like heartbreak, like tears in the dark, like truths we weren't ready to see. But that is where love begins, not in fantasy, but in raw, naked truth." So how do you know if someone is truly for you? Jung gave us a powerful question: does this relationship invite me to grow, or does it keep me stagnant? If you feel like you're standing still, constantly soothing your fears instead of evolving through them, then maybe what you're holding on to isn't love. It's comfort. It's familiarity. It's ego dressed in desire. Meaningful relationships will shake something loose in you. That's inevitable. They'll bring forgotten dreams to the surface, reawaken old wounds, and challenge your carefully crafted identity. Why? Because your soul is trying to move. It wants to evolve. And sometimes, the people who enter your life are not there to stay, but to push, to mirror, to break you open. It's not about permanence, it's about transformation. That's something we often get so wrong. We think the love that lasts forever should feel easy. Jung would say, absolutely not. Real love disturbs your peace, but in the best way. It uncenters you because it's trying to show you who you are beneath the masks. He wrote, "What you deny submits you. What you accept transforms you. And in every authentic connection, you will come face to face with parts of yourself you've tried to bury." The person you love might reflect the exact traits you swore you never wanted to see again. But that's the beauty of it. They come not to complete you, but to show you what you've abandoned within yourself. Here's something you can try right now. Close your eyes and think about the person in your heart. What do they stir in you? Is it peace or anxiety? Do you feel seen, or do you feel like you're performing for approval? What memories come flooding in when you think of them? Are they joyful, or do they awaken old wounds? Now ask the hard question. Am I seeing this person for who they truly are, or for who I desperately need them to be? That question has wrecked me more than once, because I've had to admit that sometimes I wasn't in love. I was just afraid of being alone. I was trying to fill a void I hadn't yet faced. Jung said something unforgettable. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is a reaction, both are transformed. If someone enters your life and nothing changes, no growth, no healing, no inner movement, then it probably isn't love. It might be companionship. It might even be infatuation. But it's not the kind of love that reshapes your soul. Love that is meant for you will not leave you as it found you. It will challenge you, stretch you, soften your rough edges, and burn away what no longer serves you. It is not preservation, it is alchemy. And alchemy, my friend, is always uncomfortable, but it's also divine. And if you find yourself attracting the same kind of relationship over and over again, with different faces, but the same emotional script, Jung would gently suggest you're still projecting. We do that, we all do. We project our unmet needs, our childhood wounds, and our unhealed pain onto others and call it love. But it's not love, it's a mirror asking us to look within. That's why infatuation feels so intense. It's your unconscious reflecting on you. And that's dangerous because it's seductive. You think you found your soulmate, but really, you've just encountered a piece of yourself you haven't yet integrated. So how do you know it's not a projection? Here's a test. Can you love that person in their imperfection? Can you honor them without needing them to be your savior? If they disappoint you, does your world fall apart? Or can you still hold space for their humanity? True love doesn't worship perfection. It accepts the entire person, flaws and all. Let's talk about synchronicity for a second. Jung introduced this term to describe those eerie, precise coincidences that feel like fate. You know, the ones when someone walks into your life at the exact moment you're undergoing some internal shift, when everything feels too aligned to be random. And yes, it's beautiful. But Jung also warned us, not every synchronicity is a soulmate. Sometimes it's just a message, a spiritual nudge, a catalyst. Don't confuse divine timing with divine partnership. Most importantly, Jung never described true love as perfect. He called it complete. Real love doesn't shield you from pain. It gives you the tools to face it. It doesn't promise forever. It promises growth. That, to me, is the most sacred thing we can ask for in another soul. Let's try another exercise together. Write down the 3 things that hurt you most about someone you love. Then next to each, write 3 ways you could grow stronger, so those wounds no longer define you. It's humbling, right? Because we begin to realize that the pain isn't always about what they did. Sometimes it's about what we stopped giving ourselves. Jung believed that everything we seek outside is a signpost guiding us back within. The love you crave, it's waiting inside you. The security you long for, already within your own heart. The validation, yours to give yourself. And here's the hardest truth of all. What you most need to find is hidden where you least want to look. Love will take you there, again and again. And not because it's cruel, but because it wants to free you. Sometimes we mistake a soulmate for someone who simply stirs our emotions. But the deep intensity is not always intimacy. Sometimes it's just the echo of trauma calling out to be healed. So I ask you, are you willing to stop chasing a love that saves you and instead become the one who saves yourself? Because that is when destined love arrives, not when you need it to complete you, but when you're whole enough to recognize it. We're not here to encourage you to hold on to some romantic fantasy that keeps you waiting and wishing. No, we're here to help you embrace something far more valuable emotional truth. And that truth, as raw and tender as it may be, is this: you will never know if someone is truly for you until you are for yourself. Until you can sit in your stillness and say, "I choose me." Until you can hold your own heart in the dark. Until you stop begging someone else to do the very thing you haven't done for yourself. Validate your worth. See your light. Hold your hand through the storms of your becoming. So if, right now, you find yourself clinging desperately, painfully to someone who won't choose you, someone who shows up inconsistently, or loves you with conditions, then please, pause. Ask yourself gently but honestly, is this love, or is this just my fear of being alone? Am I longing for this person because I see something real, or because I'm terrified I won't find it anywhere else? When you're honest, you may discover something hard to face. You're not trying to build a connection, you're trying to be rescued. You're not loving someone as they are. You're hoping they will fix the parts of you you're still not at peace with. Jung once said, "Real love transforms me, it doesn't destroy me." If being with them chips away at your self-worth, if it makes you question your enoughness, if it keeps you in a constant state of anxiety and waiting, that's not love. That's fear dressed in longing. That's a wound pretending to be romance. Let this moment be a symbol not of despair, but of readiness. Readiness to stop needing love and begin choosing it. Choosing it with open eyes, clear boundaries, and a soul that refuses to shrink for anyone ever again. Jung left us with a teaching that forever shifts how we view love. The primary function of a relationship is to help us develop inner wholeness. Not to complete us, not to save us, not to distract us from the ache, but to call us deeper into ourselves. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. This is where it all changes, because now it's no longer about finding someone who fits you perfectly like a missing puzzle piece. It's about finding someone who holds up a mirror and shows you the pieces you've buried, even the ones you thought no one could ever love. And when Jung spoke of the soul, he wasn't just talking in spiritual metaphors. He was describing a profound psychological truth, that your psyche, your inner world, has its wisdom, its rhythm, its mission. And when that inner world wants to grow, it will pull in exactly the people who accelerate that evolution. So no, destined love isn't always soft and sweet. Sometimes it arrives like a storm, not to break you, but to break you open, to shake the illusions, to dissolve the masks, to confront you with the parts of yourself you've ignored for far too long. If you're in a relationship right now that's stirring up past wounds, if you find yourself rethinking old beliefs, unraveling long-held patterns, coming face to face with emotions you didn't know you still carried, then please don't run. You're not broken. You're being called. Called to heal. Called to see. Called to become. Because often, the person in front of you isn't your perfect match. They're your mirror. And the reflection isn't always pretty, but it's always sacred. Jung never believed in emotional coincidences. He said that powerful emotional events, whether the start of a love that leaves you breathless or the heartbreak that leaves you on your knees, are rooted deep in your unconscious. They are not random. They are messages. And if you don't learn what they came to teach you, they will repeat. Different names, different faces, same lesson. That's how the soul works. And here's where we gently invite Freud. Though Jung eventually parted ways with him, they both agreed on something crucial. Our romantic bonds are deeply shaped by our childhood experiences. If you had an emotionally distant parent, a critical caregiver, or someone who gave love only when you performed, you're likely chasing echoes of that dynamic in adulthood. Not because you want to suffer, but because part of you believes that recreating the pain might finally rewrite the ending. But Jung didn't stop at the past. He expanded the conversation. He said, we are not just the sum of our childhood wounds. We are also souls on a journey toward wholeness. And destined love is not just a repetition of our old pain. It's a beacon calling us toward healing. The challenge is, Many never reach that healing. They get stuck in the projection loop, falling for people who reflect on their unmet needs and call it love. And because it feels so intense, so familiar, they don't question it. They cling, they suffer, they repeat. But Jung gave us a beautiful warning and an even more powerful test. Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. So ask yourself this: can I share my soul in this relationship? Can I speak of my dreams, my fears, my doubts, my darkness, and still be met with presence, not punishment? Can I be seen in my entirety, not just the pretty parts? That's how you'll know. And now we arrive at one of Jung's most liberating insights: the shadow. The shadow isn't just your bad behavior or negative traits. It's anything you've repressed, denied, or hidden because somewhere along the way, you believed it wasn't lovable. In love, your shadow comes alive. And that's not a bad thing. It's a sign you're in a soul-level connection. If a relationship triggers jealousy, neediness, insecurity, or rage, don't run blindly or blame the other. Ask instead, what part of me is crying out to be seen? Because love, when it's real, will not just soothe you, it will expose you. And that person didn't come just to hold you. They came to show you what still needs your attention, your healing, your compassion. From this perspective, destined love isn't a fantasy story where everything clicks and life becomes easy. It's a soul contract, one that asks, who am I when I'm with you? Do I rise or do I shrink? Do I feel more like myself or less? And those, my friend, are the only questions that matter. Let's bring in the powerful words of Viktor Frankl, a man who understood the human soul through the deepest lens of suffering and transcendence. Frankl reminded us of something we often forget in our frantic search for love. Love is the only way to truly grasp another human being at the core of their personality. Not through control, not through fantasies, and not through idealization. Only through love can we see someone fully, not to change them, but to understand them, honor them, and walk beside them in truth. Think about that for a moment. How many of us enter relationships not to see, but to shape? Not to embrace, but to mold? We try to fix, adjust, reshape, when real love asks us simply to witness, to hold, to stay present. If you're with someone who doesn't try to rewrite your script, who doesn't shrink your light or distort your path, but instead leans in to understand you, your fears, your wounds, your contradictions, then you might just be standing in front of something real, not perfect, not easy, but real. And yet, let's not be fooled, because Jung, ever the deep observer of the soul, gave us a sobering warning. Not everything intense is authentic. That's hard to hear when you're in the throes of passion, when someone walks in with such emotional electricity that your heart skips, your knees buckle, and every wound inside you screams, "This is it." But sometimes, it's not it. Sometimes that fire is not connected. It's your shadow crying out. It's unhealed pain, looking for a home. It's loneliness dressed in longing, trauma disguised as desire. And if you don't know yourself, if you haven't dared to sit with your soul, you will get lost in that intensity. You'll call it fate. You'll call it a soulmate. But really, it's just a mirror, a message, a moment that hasn't yet found meaning. Erich Fromm said it best. Immature love says, "I love you because I need you." Mature love says, "I need you because I love you." That shift, that's the whole difference between dependence and devotion. Jung echoed this sentiment in his way through the lens of individuation, the sacred process of becoming a whole, integrated person. True love, he believed, doesn't happen when two people merge to complete each other. It happens when two already whole people choose to walk together. If you need someone to feel like someone, you're not loving, you're leaning, you're depending, and that's a shaky foundation for anything meant to last. So ask yourself the only question that matters: am I a better, more conscious, more honest version of myself when I'm with this person even when we fight. Because love that's real doesn't avoid conflict. It uses conflict to grow, to deepen, to clarify. The soul doesn't search for a perfect partner, it seeks a true one, someone who can hold space for your full truth, even when it's hard to hear. Jung also explored the concept of archetypes, mythic symbols that speak directly to our soul. Ever met someone who felt familiar the moment you saw them? Like you've known them in another life, another time, another form? That's no accident. That's archetypal energy, deep, symbolic resonance. And while you shouldn't dismiss it, you shouldn't romanticize it either. Because sometimes those soul-shaking connections aren't meant to stay. They're karmic. They come to teach you something crucial, and then they go. Their purpose is not to comfort you, but to catapult you into awareness. How can you tell the difference between real love and romantic projection? It's a sight simple, though not easy. Projections are fragile. They shatter the moment the other person breaks your expectations. Real love bends, stretches, adapts. It doesn't demand perfection. It asks only for presence, for truth. Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." That includes the person you love, maybe especially them, because no deep relationship will ever spare you from seeing your limits, your unresolved pain, and your emotional patterns. That's the sacred fire of destined love. It doesn't exempt you from personal work, it demands it. Fiercely, unapologetically, lovingly. Try this. Write down 3 moments in your relationship, past or present, that broke your heart. Then ask, what part of me was activated in that pain? Was it my abandonment wound, my craving for control, my fear of not being good enough? There, in that reflection, lies your greatest awakening. Here's another key that often goes unnoticed. When someone is truly for you, they don't ask you to shrink. They don't dim your light to make themselves feel brighter. They amplify you. They cheer you when you rise, gently challenge you when you shrink, and hold your hand when life cracks you open. If you have to hide who you are, if you have to downplay your joy, your power, your truth to make a relationship work, that's not love. That's survival. That's fear. And you deserve more than that. Jung taught that the soul doesn't want comfort, it wants evolution. And when you attract someone who invites you to grow, who encourages your vulnerability and your strength, who lets you fall apart and still sees your worth, you are standing on sacred ground. Ask yourself again, with courage, does this person help me connect to my deepest calling? Do I feel safe enough to speak of my dreams, my fears, my chaos? Or do we just float on the surface, talking about nothing to avoid everything? Because the strength of a relationship isn't found in how often you laugh, it's found in how deep you can go without fear of breaking. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Destined love isn't always smooth. It fights, it doubts, it struggles, but it builds. It stays in the room, it keeps talking. It doesn't vanish without a trace. And if you're in something that drains more than it feeds you, Jung would whisper gently, there is no soul in that bond, only shadow. Don't shame yourself for choosing it, but take responsibility for whether you remain in it. Awareness begins when we stop justifying our pain and start honoring our truth. And ultimately, the kind of love that is truly meant for you doesn't come wrapped in confusion or fear. It doesn't need to convince you of its worth. It simply is. Steady, honest, awake. It speaks, moves intentionally, and invites you into a deeper presence. Some people come into our lives as mirrors to reflect. Others come as teachers to reveal. But the ones who matter most, they're the ones who help you remember. Remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Remember your voice, your light, your soul. Jung wouldn't tell you to chase the love that always feels good. He'd tell you to notice the love that makes you feel alive, even if it aches. This doesn't mean you should glorify someone who hurts you. The difference lies in the intention. Is the confrontation coming from control or from respect, from ego or from love? Because destined love will never demand that you betray yourself. It will never require you to abandon your soul for someone else's comfort. Instead, it will walk beside you as you become who you were always meant to be. Individuation, the sacred process of becoming whole, is not interrupted by real love. It is amplified by it. And the most beautiful sign that someone is truly for you, they help you come home to yourself when you've lost your way. They don't pull you away from your truth. They remind you of it. In the chaos, in the confusion, in the hard days when you forget who you are, their presence becomes a lighthouse, not a leash. Some bonds will consume you, others will confuse you, but a rare few will clarify you. And Jung would tell you this: if you do not make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you'll call it fate. So, when that person appears, and every part of you lights up with old fear disguised as romance, ask gently, is this destiny, or is it a wound in a new disguise? Because real love will not feel like drowning. It will feel like breathing deeply, finally, into the full truth of who you are. Here's a powerful practice you can do, especially if you're uncertain about the emotional truth in your relationship. Take a quiet moment, breathe deeply, and write down the most authentic experiences you've shared with that person. Not the most romantic, not the butterflies and fireworks, but the realest moments, those vulnerable times when you showed a piece of your soul, unguarded and unpolished. Maybe it was a moment of grief. Maybe it was your silence in the dark. Maybe it was the tremble in your voice when you spoke your truth for the first time. Then ask yourself, did they stay with me in that rawness? Did they lean in with compassion, or did they pull away, become distant, shut down, or turn cold? Because love doesn't truly begin when you're at your best. It begins when you can no longer pretend, when your mask cracks and the real you step forward. That is where intimacy begins or ends. Jung's wisdom calls us to observe the symbolic nature of our relationships. He believed that every relationship holds psychological and archetypal weight. There are no meaningless encounters. There is always something deeper, speaking through the dynamic. So reflect honestly. Does this person represent something to you beyond themselves? Do they remind you of a parent who never saw you? A savior you always hoped would rescue you? Are you loving them or loving what they symbolize? Because the more archetypal your perception, the more likely you auto-project. You might not even see the human in front of you. You might only see the role you've cast them in. And projections are dangerous. They blind us from the truth, keep us in cycles of disappointment, and make it impossible to love the actual person in front of us. In therapy, it's heartbreaking how often people believe that the intensity of a connection makes it true. But intensity, Jung warned, can be the most unconscious thing of all. That overwhelming attraction might not be love. It might be the echo of an old wound, an emotional reenactment, the soul reaching for healing through someone who can't provide it. That's why Jung insisted, love must be pierced by awareness, not to extinguish its flame, but to purify it. Love without consciousness becomes chaos, but love awakened by truth, that becomes transformation. You see, emotional pain that goes unexamined will always circle back. You will keep chasing the same person in different forms, not because you're foolish, but because your unconscious is crying for resolution. And until you understand why you need what hurts you, you'll keep reaching for it, calling it love. This is the power of depth psychology. It gives us the tools to dig to the root. Only when you understand why you crave what you do, can you begin to heal and choose differently. A relationship that's aligned with your soul will never ask you to abandon yourself. It may ask you to evolve, to refine, to rise, but not to erase your truth, not to perform, not to hide your fire. If being with someone makes you feel you must change your essence just to be loved, if you have to silence your voice, suppress your dreams, dim your light, then what you found isn't love. It's lack. And lack is loud. One of Jung's most enduring truths is this: the encounter with oneself means, first and foremost, the encounter with one's own shadow. So if the relationship you're in brings pain, don't automatically discard it. Ask instead, is this pain revealing a deeper part of me I've yet to meet? Sometimes love feels like wounding before it feels like healing, because the soul needs to see itself in the mirror of another, and that's often a painful unveiling. Ask yourself this: when I speak from my wounds, do they hear me or do they dismiss me? Can I talk about the parts of me I'm still learning to accept without being made to feel small, dramatic, or broken? True love doesn't need to fix your broken places. It simply sits with them, listens, honors, maybe doesn't always fully understand, but never makes you feel like your feelings are too much. Because real love is never emotional competition. It's mutual trust. It's a safe space. It's a sacred container where your voice can tremble, your eyes can flood, your truth can spill and still be met with grace. Here's the hardest part. The soul moves at a different pace than the mind. It doesn't care about your timeline, your plan, or your expectations. Sometimes love arrives when you're still learning to stand. Sometimes it appears long after you've stopped believing. But Jung taught us that the soul's symbols have their timing. Your only job is to stay awake. Don't push. Don't rush. Just notice what stirs in you when someone arrives. And remember, not everything that feels like love is love. Shared pain can feel magnetic. Trauma bonding can feel like intimacy. The need to escape loneliness can look like passion. But destined love is different. It doesn't seek to complete you. It already recognizes you as a whole and simply chooses to walk beside you. It's not needy. It's not frantic. It doesn't manipulate or make you earn its presence. Here's another revealing key. The love that is for you doesn't fight against your soul. It may challenge you. It may hold you accountable, but it won't drag you into confusion, silence your voice, or leave you emotionally starving. If every time you love, you feel less like yourself, if you grow more anxious, more lost, more unsure, that is not love. That is emotional chaos wearing a mask. Let this be your compass. Destined love is not measured by time, but by truth. Some connections are brief, but deeply healing. Some last for years and still leave you shattered. It's not about the duration, it's about the depth. Don't measure love by the calendar. Measure it by what it awakens in you. In Jungian terms, love is a gateway to the self. That means a real relationship will guide you back to your truth. And if it doesn't, if it constantly pulls you further from who you are, it may not be the path you're meant to follow. Destiny, Jung believed, is not a puppet master in the sky. It's not something that happens to you. Destiny is built when you listen to your soul and act on what you know deep down. And in love, there's one form of destiny that stands above all others: mutual transformation. Jung spoke often of alchemy, how we must metaphorically die and be reborn to grow. In relationships, this means two people must be willing to transform together, to leave behind old defenses, false selves, emotional masks. If only one person evolves while the other resists, avoids, or clings to comfort, the balance breaks. The alchemy fails. The love cannot ascend. But when both souls say yes to becoming truer versions of themselves, even when it hurts, even when it's messy, that's where the sacred happens. So I'll leave you with this. If someone is helping you return to yourself, to the strongest, wisest, softest parts of your being, if their presence doesn't distract you from your truth, but deepens it, if your bond calls you to heal, not hide, then perhaps, just perhaps, you've encountered something rare, something real. But if every moment together feels like an echo of an old wound, if you're mistaking anxiety for love and confusion for passion, then Jung would gently remind you, that's not your soulmate, it's your shadow asking to be seen. Let's be honest, chemistry isn't enough. It might light the fire, but it doesn't keep the flame alive. And making plans together? That's beautiful. But plans without purpose are just noise. What truly matters, what keeps two souls aligned over time, is inner direction. That shared pull toward something deeper, something sacred. Because the love that's meant for you doesn't just walk beside you like a convenient companion. It walks with you, step by step, toward a common horizon. And no, that doesn't mean you have to move at the same speed. One may stride ahead, while the other takes careful, reflective steps. That's okay. What matters is that both hearts are aimed at the same North Star: authenticity. In destined love, authenticity is not negotiable. You can cry in front of them without fear. You can fall apart in their presence without shame. You can say, I don't have it all together. And instead of being met with silence or judgment, you're met with open arms and understanding eyes. That kind of love doesn't collect your vulnerabilities like weapons. It holds them like sacred offerings. It doesn't throw your pain back in your face during a fight. It remembers your scars and treads lightly. But let's be clear, building that kind of love takes courage. Courage to sit with your awuth. Courage to reassess your patterns. Courage to walk away from the familiar, to walk toward the real. And when your soul feels ready, when you've done the inner work, faced your shadows, and chosen yourself first, that's when you summon your equal. Not someone who's equal in resume, or looks, or status, but someone who matches your commitment to soul growth. Someone whose spirit rises to meet yours, not to control, not to complete, but to complement. Jung never said that love would heal everything, but he did teach that love would reveal everything that still needs healing. And that's the truth many avoid, because the revelation can be painful. It can shake your foundation. It can ruin your 5-year plan. But in that shaking lies the real gift, awakening. You'll know you're in something meaningful, not when everything feels euphoric, but when you notice that your anxiety softens, your clarity sharpens, and your energy begins to flow more freely. That peace, that sacred peace that feels like a return to yourself, is the soul's way of saying, you're safe here. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. And if that relationship nudges you to seek therapy, dive into books, ask deeper questions, or shed the masks you've worn for decades, don't resist it. Don't dismiss it. That person, whether they stay for a season or a lifetime, came to open a door. And once the soul has walked through that door, it cannot go back. You'll feel it in your bones if you try. It's like betraying yourself. The love that is truly for you won't demand endless explanations for your feelings. It will explain itself through consistent presence, honest communication, and real care. If someone constantly makes you doubt your worth, makes you feel invisible, and makes you shrink just to be tolerated, that's not love. That's an unhealed wound begging to be recognized. So many of us cling to the idea of someone being the one, simply because we want them to be. But the desire alone doesn't make it true. Your mind may want them, but your soul will recognize when something is aligned. And when the soul recognizes someone, it doesn't scream in panic, it exhales. There's no anxiety, there's no chasing. There's just quiet certainty. A whisper that says, this feels like home, not because it's easy, but because it's real. Jung would tell you before you ever ask, are they for me? You must first answer, am I being for myself? The first act of love isn't something you direct outward. It's what you offer inward. It's looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I choose you, all of you. And when you do that, love becomes a gift, not a need. Some encounters will not last a lifetime, and that's okay. They don't need to. A single gaze, a fleeting conversation, one sacred weekend, that can be enough to shift something eternal within you. Destined love doesn't always stay, but it always leaves a mark. It awakens something. It whispers truths you didn't know you were ready to hear. And if you loved someone who didn't love you back, you're not broken for that. You're brave. You're awake. You're alive enough to feel deeply. And that is a gift this world tries to bury. Real love doesn't leave you hollow. It may break you open, but it breaks you where the light needed to get in. It doesn't weaken you. It reveals where you were already cracked and ready to heal. That is the essence of Jungian love. To love is to know yourself. To love another is to see them, without projection or illusion. And to grow in love is to walk through the most uncomfortable questions of the soul together. So, ask yourself now, what part of me was activated when I met them? Was it my soul calling out in recognition? Or was it my wound begging not to be abandoned again? Because Jung defined the self as the wholeness each of us is called to integrate, and real love, destined love, will not distract you from that path. It will illuminate it. It will challenge your forgetfulness and invite you to remember. If that relationship is helping you piece together the parts of you forgot, your fears, your longings, your contradictions, maybe this isn't just an emotional entanglement. Maybe this is the purpose of wearing the face of a person. Just don't mistake intensity for truth. The unconscious doesn't whisper, it shouts. It throws projections onto people with incredible force. And if you're not careful, you'll fall in love with your idea of someone, not the reality of who they are. But if you stay aware, if you keep choosing truth over illusion, if you listen to what your soul feels rather than what your ego wants, you will know. The love that's for you doesn't demand you be perfect. It asks you to be present. It doesn't make you smaller. It calls you home. And it doesn't distract you from your path. It becomes part of it. Sometimes the soul doesn't whisper, it screams. And often, it screams through the presence of another person, revealing what you've avoided hearing from yourself. That's why love, especially the kind that changes you, doesn't always feel soft. It doesn't always come with gentle winds or tender hands. Sometimes, it comes like a jolt, a lightning strike to your emotional nervous system, a disruption. But not all disruptions are meant to destroy. Some come to awaken. So if you felt that jolt, if someone's presence shook you open, stirred something deep within, rattled your comfort, don't immediately run from it. Instead, pause, breathe, listen. Think of that person who still lives somewhere in the corners of your mind. Maybe you see their face in dreams. Maybe their name still stirs something in your chest. Now ask yourself, do I feel I can evolve spiritually in their presence? Is there freedom between us, even in the midst of challenges? Do I feel like I can exist without having to explain my right to do so? If your answer is yes, even with some doubts, then you may be standing in front of something sacred, not flawless, not idealized, but real. Realness doesn't mean ease. It means truth. And truth in love is everything. Here's a powerful exercise. Write down 3 words that define how you feel when you're with that person. Then ask yourself, do I feel those same words when I'm alone? Because when love is real, it doesn't fill a void, it resonates with your being. It doesn't give you a self, it recognizes the self you've been all along. Jung would say the love that's for you doesn't arise from obsession or craving, it arises from recognition. You don't chase it. You don't need to. You see it. You sense it. There's something in their presence that reflects you more clearly. Not your fantasy, not your illusion, but your essence. And when that happens, there's no more mental static, no overthinking, no tug of war between logic and longing, just clarity, just the peace of knowing, even without a reason. Another profound sign of destined love in Jungian terms, you feel accepted even in your process. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to posture. You don't have to polish yourself before being seen. You just are. And that's enough. That's always been enough. Remember this sacred quote from Jung: "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." So if someone gives you the space to unfold, not to perform, but to become that soul love, that's not a connection of convenience. That's a bond of meaning. The love that is truly for you will never ask you to lose yourself, even in chaos, even in arguments, misunderstandings, and breakdowns. It will tenderly remind you who you are. It will bring you back. It will steady you. As Jung once said, "Those who look outward dream, but those who look inward awaken." And love is the greatest invitation to awaken. We talk about love as though it's a destination, something to achieve, acquire, capture. But Jung offered us a deeper understanding. Love is not a goal, it is a mirror. It reveals you. And in that reflection, you meet your shadow, your longing, your need for wholeness. And suddenly, you realize this isn't about them. This is about you. From Jung's lens, we don't fall for people randomly. We're pulled toward those who, on some unconscious level, help us complete an unresolved inner story. What you lacked as a child, what hurt but never healed, what was repressed but never released. That's what gets projected onto another, and suddenly, you think it's love. But often, it's unfinished pain searching for resolution. This is why we sometimes fall hardest for the people who aren't good for us. Because our psyche doesn't seek comfort, it seeks evolution. And evolution doesn't always feel safe. Sometimes it feels like being set on fire. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. But love, real love, is an alchemical process. It burns away what's false. It transforms lead into gold. It doesn't always feel good, but it always leads you closer to your truth. Jung warned us, everything that isn't made conscious manifests as fate. You may think you're destined for someone when you're being driven by an unintegrated unconscious. And that's not destiny. That's a loop. That's why awareness is everything. Observe yourself. Question what you feel. Where does it come from? What memory does it echo? Viktor Frankl said that love is the only way to truly grasp another's essence. And that aligns with Jung's view. Only a person who has met their soul can truly meet another's. So it's not enough to feel love. You must be deep enough to sustain it. And here's the truth. Some people simply aren't ready. Not because they're heartless, but because they haven't yet looked within. They haven't asked the hard questions. They haven't made peace with their wounds. As Karen Horney so wisely said, what we often call love is a desperate attempt to escape our inner emptiness. We cling, not out of connection, but out of fear. And when that happens, relationships don't become sanctuaries. They become cages. Cages of disguised dependency, shared anxiety, muted authenticity. Jung taught that love, at its best, is initiation. Not every relationship is meant to last, but everyone is meant to teach. Even the painful ones, even the ones that broke you, especially those. Because those are the ones that show you the parts of yourself still aching for attention, the parts you tried to outrun, the parts you forgot how to hold. So if you're in something right now that makes you smaller, if you're silencing your voice just to keep the peace, if you feel like you're constantly pretending, then you're not walking the path of individuation, you're living in emotional confinement. But if you're with someone who gives you the freedom to breathe, to expand, to be seen, if you can show your rough edges, your contradictions, your fears, and still be met with warmth, then, my friend, you are walking beside something sacred. Because if there's one thing destined love always offers, it's freedom. Freedom to feel, freedom to grow, freedom to become. John Bowlby, the brilliant mind behind attachment theory, taught us that our earliest experiences with love and care shape how we bond as adults. And it's true, our childhood scripts often write the opening lines of our romantic stories. But Carl Jung, he took us even deeper. He'd say, yes, your past influences you, but you are not imprisoned by it. We hold the power to rewrite, to unlearn, to break the pattern, and heal the narrative. And that's where true love is born, not from longing or lack, but from awareness. From a place inside you that's awake and sovereign. A place that doesn't love to fill an emptiness, but loves to honor a soul. So ask yourself, if every time you love, you lose yourself, if you surrender your self-worth, your voice, your direction, then what you're experiencing isn't love. It's emotional exile. It's abandonment in the name of intimacy. Erich Fromm said it so beautifully, love is not fusion, it's union with preserved individuality. If love makes you disappear, it isn't love. It's vanishing. And no one, not even the most magnetic connection, is worth your disappearance. When Jung spoke of anima and animus, he wasn't merely describing male and female energy. He was revealing inner forces, creation and contemplation, action and soulfulness. These live within each of us. But when we haven't integrated them, we project them onto others. We seek in another what we haven't yet accessed in ourselves. And suddenly, we mistake desire for destiny. But destined love, Jung would say, is never an external lack. It's an inner resonance. It's not, you complete me. It's, you reflect the part of me I had forgotten how to honor. Ever feel stuck, suffocated, or confused in a relationship, yet unable to let go? Jung would tell you this: the soul doesn't release what hasn't been understood. The psyche clings, not to the person, but to the lessons still trapped within the bond. Let that sink in. Only when you decide what the relationship came to reveal, what wound it poked, what truth it activated, can you let go without guilt. Until then, the soul will hold on. Because some bonds aren't meant to last. They're meant to awaken. And that's your sacred responsibility to discern. Not everything that feels intense is meant to be permanent. Some relationships are earthquakes. They arrive, shake everything up, leave you breathless, and then they leave. And your work isn't to run after them, it's to stay whole after the tremor. From described love as an art, a daily practice, a choice you recommit to again and again. Jung would nod in agreement and add, conscious love takes discipline. It's not enough to feel. You must know how to hold the feeling. The soul can recognize a connection, but only a mature psyche can sustain that recognition without distortion. Jung also gave us one of the most profound truths of love. Individuation doesn't stop in a relationship, it should deepen. If someone asks you to stop evolving, to shrink for the bond to work, that's not love. That's emotional manipulation. True love doesn't demand you become less. It asks you to become more. As Jung said, real love doesn't avoid your shadow, it walks with you into it. It sees you even when you're broken, even when you're doubting, and chooses not to flinch. It doesn't pedestal you, it holds you whole. That kind of love transforms you. Not because it solves everything, but because it calls you to heal, to grow, to rise from a place of truth. Imagine, just for a moment, that everything you've lived, every heartbreak, every missed call, every serendipitous meeting had meaning. Jung would believe it. He taught that every encounter is archetypal, part of your soul's myth unfolding. Nothing is random. No person is accidental. Every connection is symbolic. Some relationships bend time. They might last a week or a lifetime, but what matters is the depth of the soul touch. If someone has stirred your inner world, forced you to ask hard questions, made you weep in recognition of your wounds, that is not small. That is not forgettable. That's a turning point. It may not be your fairy tale ending, but it may be your sacred beginning, because healing love doesn't always feel blissful. It often hurts. It often disrupts. It often challenges your story of who you thought you were, but it stays not to save you, but to walk with you. Presence, not possession, is what the soul craves. Jung never promised us easy love, but he promised us true love And true love means walking a path full of questions. You might not have certainty, but when you look through the eyes of your soul, not your wounds, you'll know when a bond is real. When someone awakens a version of you you didn't know existed, that doesn't always mean they're your other half. It may mean that you were waiting to meet yourself. Destined love doesn't complete you. It reveals you. And Jung was adamant. Stop searching outside for what can only be built within. So, if a relationship is showing you your pain, your denial, your avoidance, don't run from it. Observe it. That person may not have come to stay, but they came to teach. And there are some lessons your soul could never learn in solitude. You're not seeking a soulmate. You're seeking a mirror. You're seeking a lesson in truth. To love from the soul is not to find someone who saves you, but to find someone who witnesses you, chooses you with open eyes, and walks beside you with reverence and fire. Jung would say, mature love doesn't promise forever, it promises presence. Not grand declarations, but honesty. Not emotional highs, but shared growth. Too many confuse love with intensity. But the intensity Jung and Karen Horney would caution can also be a symptom of unresolved chaos. If your soul has known nothing but disorder, peace will feel foreign. So, if someone brings you stillness, don't call it boring. Maybe it's what your heart has been praying for. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 5 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Many relationships collapse because one person is still seeking a parent, not a partner, still yearning to be rescued, not seen, and no amount of love can carry that burden. Only awareness, only healing, only inner work can. Jung knew this. You cannot love freely if you're still tied to unresolved trauma. True love doesn't make you forget who you are. It makes you remember. It makes you stronger in your skin, steadier in your voice, and firmer in your boundaries. So hear this clearly. If someone dims your spirit, if they ask you to betray your voice to keep the peace, if they pull you away from your soul's calling, that is not love. That is an attachment. That is a wound repeating itself. And the work now is not to win them back. It's to win yourself back. One of the greatest mistakes we make over and over is chasing relationships to escape our emptiness. We don't mean to. We're not foolish. We're simply human. But in our loneliness, we often treat love like a hiding place instead of a homecoming. We search for someone to quiet the ache, to fill the void, to distract us from the parts of ourselves we're not ready to face. But as Carl Jung warned us, everything we repress ends up ruling us. If you are not at peace with your solitude, and love, no matter how magical it first appears, will become an illusion, then a cage, and eventually a wound. Because love, no matter how beautiful, cannot save you from yourself. Mature love knows this. It doesn't come to fill your gaps or patch your brokenness. It comes to walk beside you as you learn how to do that sacred work yourself. It doesn't demand that you bleed in its name. It demands only one thing, your authenticity. And that sounds simple, but in practice, it's one of the most radical acts of emotional courage a human being can choose. Because authenticity means you have to stop performing, stop shrinking, stop making yourself palatable in hopes that someone stays. It means showing up as you, even when your voice shakes, even when your past whispers lies, even when you feel like too much or not enough. Here's the quiet truth. When someone's presence consistently takes more energy than it gives, that's not love, that's a message. A message your soul has been trying to deliver for a while. The soul always knows. It always warns. But only the awake will hear it. So, listen. What does your body say when you're with that person? How do you breathe? How do you sleep? The body doesn't lie. It's not caught in illusions or fantasies. And the love that is truly for you will never drain you to the point of emotional depletion. It won't leave you heavy and restless. It will renew you. It will quiet your nervous system. It will soften the chaos, not add to it. Not everything that glitters is gold, and not everything that feels urgent is love. Sometimes, what we're calling love is just well-dressed dependency. It looks like affection. It sounds like commitment. But underneath, it's an attempt to bandage the void with soft words and temporary gestures. Jung spoke of the false self, the mask we wear to survive in the world. Many relationships are nothing more than two masks in conversation. But real love doesn't speak to your mask. It waits for you to take it off. If you look back and realize that every choice you made in love was driven by fear of abandonment, then you didn't choose your wound, did? And that's not your shame. That's your story. But once you see it, you can no longer love in the same way, because now you've awakened. The next love must come from truth, not trauma, from awareness, not survival, from wholeness, not hunger. The soul doesn't want perfect love. It wants a presence. It wants love that stays when you're not smiling, that holds your hand even when you have no answers, that respects your pace, your doubts, your healing. Because as Jung said, love doesn't heal you, but it can create the safest ground for you to heal yourself. If someone only loves you when you're useful, when you're easy, when you're giving, when you're glowing, then that's not love. That's emotional convenience. True love doesn't see your worth as a transaction. It holds you even when you're cracked open and trembling. It sees your light, but it does not run from your shadow. There is a sacred point in every individuation process, a spiritual threshold where you realize that no one can love you the way you are not loving yourself. And that's when everything begins to change. That's when you stop begging, stop settling, stop handing out pieces of your heart in exchange for scraps of attention. That's when you stop confusing emotional hunger with soul recognition. Jung reminded us that both dreams and relationships carry symbols from the unconscious. So, if you're in a relationship that feels strange, intense, magnetic, don't only look at the person. Look at yourself. Ask, what part of me is awakening? What aspect of my soul is being stirred? Even when your mind can't make sense of it, your soul already knows. Some of the most transformational loves aren't the ones that kiss you the most. They're the ones that mirror you the most. They show you feelings you didn't know you could feel. They leave you not just with memories, but with openings, questions, truths, and paths you never knew were within you. Don't measure that kind of love by how long it lasted. Measure it by how deeply it changed you. When Jung spoke of integration, he meant the radical act of uniting all your parts. Your light, your rage, your tenderness, your fear, your sensuality, your shadow. And the love that is for you will not ask you to be one-dimensional. It will embrace your contradictions. It won't flee when your smile disappears. It won't punish you when your darkness shows. Because real love stays grounded. It doesn't idealize, it accepts. And it doesn't vanish when you're not easy to love. But not everyone who teaches you something is meant to walk your whole path. Some people arrive to wake you up, to serve as spiritual sirens, not soulmates. And mature love means knowing when to let them go, not out of bitterness, but out of reverence. Because love is also letting go. And letting go, when done consciously, is one of the greatest acts of love there is. So don't seek love as a constant thrill. Seek it as constant growth. Passion will come and go, but admiration, trust, sacred presence, those are the roots that sustain the kind of love your soul recognizes without needing a checklist. Remember this, the love that is truly for you doesn't demand you sacrifice yourself to keep it. It doesn't punish your silence. It doesn't manipulate your mind or tamper with your peace. It doesn't make you question your worth daily. The love that is for you is clear, honest, steady, firm, without being harsh, deep without being chaotic, soft without being weak. Some relationships come to teach you boundaries. others come to help you open, and some come to remind you that the one thing you must never do is give up on yourself. Every connection has its purpose, but only you can decide if you are ready to evolve through it, or if you're still using it to avoid yourself. Because love isn't just something you fall into. It's something you rise through. When you love again, let it be from presence, not from panic. Let it rise from the depth of your soul, not from the fear of being alone. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 6 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. And before whispering to the stars, "This person is for me," take a sacred moment to ask, am I for myself? Am I dwelling within my being? Have I chosen myself lately? Do I honor who I am when no one's watching? Because the deepest, truest love doesn't start with someone else. It begins at home, in the quiet chambers of your heart. It begins with the unwavering decision to never abandon yourself again. Remember this, not just with your mind, but with your whole heart. You are not less worthy because someone didn't choose you. You are not broken because you gave too much. You are not foolish because you didn't see it sooner. No, you are alive. You are feeling. You are learning. And in this world so addicted to numbness, that is an act of bravery. What you're moving through right now, it's not just a breakup, it's a rebirth. And yes, it hurts. Yes, it's confusing. Yes, it feels like pieces of your soul are scattered across days and memories. But trust me, those pieces, they are aligning. What feels like chaos now will be clarity tomorrow. Jung once wrote, "No one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And today, right now, you are touching that darkness. That aching place inside you that still believes you are not enough, not worthy, not lovable, without effort. And because you're brave enough to feel it, you are closer to the light than ever before. Maybe no one ever taught you to love yourself. Maybe you learned that love must be earned, performed, and chased. Maybe you believed you had to be something more to deserve to be held. But hear this with every fiber of your being. You don't have to earn what your soul already is. You don't have to chase what was never running from you. You are already enough. Return to yourself. Come home to your essence. Stop handing your heart to those who don't know how to carry it. Your worth was never in their hands. It's in your awakened consciousness, your ability to see the truth, even when it hurts, to stay present when everything in you wants to run. True love does not come when you beg for it. It comes when you stop betraying yourself to avoid being abandoned. It comes when you choose your truth, even if that truth means walking alone for a while, because solitude born of self-love is 1,000 times more sacred than a company that demands you disappear to exist. This right here is your moment, your turning point. The moment you stop looking for signs out there and start listening to the voice within, that whisper that's been telling you, you deserve more. You were not born to beg. You are not a placeholder. You are the blessing. And anyone who walks beside you must rise to meet your worth. And if today you feel a knot in your chest, a tear in your eye, a strange mix of grief and relief, don't hold it back. Let it move through you. You're not breaking. You're freeing yourself. You're shedding old stories. You're rewriting the narrative. You're saying, no more love that hurts. I want of love that heals. And that healing begins with you. Let this space be your sanctuary. If these words echo something sacred in your soul, share it. Tell us how you feel. Tell us what phrase struck your heart. Tell us what you're walking through. And if this message found you at just the right moment, write this below as your declaration, your mantra, your rebirth. I'm ready for a love that finds me without me having to lose myself. Let the world know that you're not afraid of love. You're just done with love that costs you your essence. Because now, we don't just talk about healing, we live it. Andres didn't know that yet, not fully, but he was starting to feel it. The morning was soaked in mist, as Bogota's clouds wept gently over the windows of cafes and the rusted railings of Chapinero Alto's quiet apartments. Andres walked slowly down Carrera Septima, hands buried in his coat pockets, his scarf pulled high but still. The cold of her absence clung to his chest. For weeks, he had been caught in a silent war with himself, replaying moments, rewriting sentences, searching for signs. How do you know if someone is truly for you? That question had haunted him ever since Lucia left. She'd come into his life like a storm, with no warning, unlike anyone he had ever chased before. Maybe that's what disarmed him. She had a soft voice, yet her gaze didn't flinch. She asked questions no one else dared to. Questions that made him sit still. Questions that cracked something open in him. They'd met at a psychology conference at Javeriana University. He had attended half-heartedly, following a friend's invitation. But when Lucia began to speak about archetypes, about the shadow, about the silent griefs we carry like heirlooms, he forgot he wasn't supposed to care. The days after felt like floating, wandering through downtown bookstores, drinking black coffee on rainy steps, staying up until 3 a.m., talking about wounds, childhood, and the soul. Lucia spoke of Jung with a clarity that startled him. "You think you're getting to know me," she told him once, her voice calm. "But what you're seeing in me is your projection." That sentence didn't scare him. It shook him. It made him fall. But then something shifted, subtle but steady. Lucia didn't pull away with cruelty, but each time she created distance, Andres found himself unraveling. He became smaller, more unsure, more dependent. And that's when he realized he was no longer standing in love. He was sinking in it. One Sunday night, after she cancelled their plans with barely a word, Andres returned to his apartment on Calais 59, closed the door behind him, and collapsed onto the couch. He reached for the book she had lent him, Jung's Memories, Dreams, Reflections, and began to reread the pages in silence. There, under a passage he had once skimmed, his pen now trembled with understanding. "What you deny submits you. What you accept transforms you." He underlined it slowly. And in that moment, Andres didn't reach for the phone. He didn't try to explain, fix, or chase. He sat still. And for the first time in weeks, he breathed like someone remembering who they were. For the first time, Andres realized the aching in his chest wasn't truly about her. It was about what she stirred inside of him. Lucia hadn't been his storm. She was his mirror. A mirror that didn't shatter him, but revealed him. That night, sleep never came. Andres sat in silence, watching the rain blur his reflection in the window pane, the glass fogged by his breath and the weight of 1,000 unspoken truths. He thought of his childhood, of how his mother, though present, had always felt a million miles away, emotionally distant, her love withheld, like a prize to be earned. In that reflection, he saw a boy still reaching, still proving, still hoping that if he just did something extraordinary, someone might finally choose to stay. "I'm seeking love, like it's something I have to earn," he wrote in his notebook that night. "Not something I deserve." And that truth cracked something open. He didn't reach for his phone. He didn't draft a text, not out of pride, but because, for the first time in his life, he needed to choose himself not in theory, but in action. The next day, Andres wandered through Bogotá on foot, eventually stopping at the edge of the national park, just off Avenida Circunvalar. He closed his eyes and breathed, and in that breath, he found something he had never felt before. Stillness. No longing, no reaching, just presence. And it wasn't peace that came from her return. It was peace that came from his own. The days that followed were quiet. No calls, no messages. The silence, at first, was a sharp ache, but slowly it became a ritual, a cleansing. He started therapy. He brought his journals, his scribbled dreams. He spoke of recurring symbols, trains that never arrived, elevators rising endlessly, doors leading to otherworldly landscapes. His therapist, a calm man named Manuel, gently smiled and said, "Your unconscious is speaking. You're finally ready to meet yourself." Andres leaned in, not just to therapy, but to the work, the deep inner work Jung calls individuation, the becoming of the true self. Then, one rainy afternoon, fate or synchronicity offered a poetic closure. He saw Lucia again. She was standing by a shelf in their favorite downtown bookstore, flipping through a slim poetry book. When she looked up and saw him, she smiled, not with regret, but with tenderness. He smiled back, but not like before, not as a beggar hoping to be seen, but as a man who had finally seen himself. She asked how he was. "I'm learning to know myself," he said softly. "Just starting." They spoke for only a few minutes. No drama, no questions, no apologies, just presence, just the echo of something sacred that had already served its purpose. When they said goodbye, there was no heaviness. Andres didn't feel empty. He felt grateful, because he now understood something most people never do. Not all love is meant to stay. Some love enters like a sacred storm, meant to return you to yourself. In the months that followed, Andres began writing anonymously. At first, he poured his soul into a quiet blog about the unconscious, relationships, emotional patterns. Reflections written not as advice, but as offerings. To his surprise, others began reading and resonating. And it was then, only then, that he understood another of Jung's truths. When you integrate your shadow, you become medicine for others. One quiet morning, flipping through old notebooks, he found a page Lucia had once written in blue ink. "What you see in me is what you don't want to see in you." He smiled, because now he understood. Now, he saw clearly he hadn't fallen in love with Lucia. He had fallen in love with the reflection of himself that she awakened. And that's the beauty of real growth, when you no longer chase closure, because you realize the story was never really about them. It was always about you. Lucia was never his destination. She was the mirror that helped him find his way back to his true home himself. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 7 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. He no longer wandered Bogota scanning faces for her. He walked with a different awareness now. Every street, every cafe, every quiet corner of Montserrat now whispered something symbolic. Every step was part of his myth. Because Jung was right, our lives are not random. They are archetypal journeys, sacred, layered, unfolding. Eventually, someone new appeared. Not like lightning, not like chaos, not like fantasy. She was different. Calm, clear, grounded. Their story wasn't epic. It was real. No projections, no urgency, just presence, just unfolding. Andres didn't lose himself in her. He stood beside her, and she beside him. And that, he learned, was what real love felt like. Not possession, but freedom. As Jung said, love is the space in which two people can become free. Andres learned that not when he found someone new, but when he let go of the one he thought was his forever. Because of the true destiny, it was never her. It was always him, returning to himself. Andres' story isn't just a tale of romance. It's a mirror, a soul map. Because relationships aren't merely about affection. They are about awakening. They are about projection, about emotional mirrors that force us to confront what we've buried, about patterns we repeat until we heal. Lucia didn't just show up. She arrived as a Jungian figure, the embodiment of the anima, his inner feminine, the gateway to his unconscious. When she said, "What you see in me is your projection," she wasn't dismissing him. She was unknowingly giving him the first clue about his wholeness. And that's what we all need to understand. Not all bonds are meant to last. Some are meant to wake us up. So when people ask, How do I know if someone is for me? The deeper question might be, what part of myself is being reflected in them? Am I loving from wholeness or my wounds? Because the love that is truly for you will never require you to abandon yourself. It will never demand you perform or prove. It will see you. It will respect you. It will walk beside you as you both continue your becoming. That's the essence of Jungian love. That's what it means to grow. That's what it means to return to yourself. Depth psychology offers us a vital question. What does that relationship bring out in you? If it triggers your dependency, your fear of abandonment, and your deep need for approval, then what you are experiencing isn't a destined love story. It's an old script one your soul has been repeating in an attempt to free itself. Andres begins to heal, not when Lucia stays, but when she leaves. Why? Because, as Jung so wisely explained, the unconscious becomes conscious only when it no longer meets our immediate needs. The pain of separation, though it cuts deeply, is the beginning of Andres's awakening. When he chooses not to chase her, not out of pride, but out of an urgent need to find himself, that is where the true healing begins. And that's deeply therapeutic. Many of us seek answers from the other person, never realizing that the other is only the trigger, not the solution. We project our wounds onto them, hoping they will heal us, when in reality, they are simply showing us the parts of ourselves we have neglected. This brings us to one of Jung's core concepts, the self, not the ego, not the social mask. But that essential part of us arises when we confront our shadow, our deepest wounds, and our truest desires. Andres doesn't stop loving. He starts loving differently, inward. His walks through Bogota aren't random. They are symbolic rituals of a soul beginning to reclaim its own body, to find its footing in a city that once felt like a maze of confusion. In Jungian psychology, the outer world reflects the inner world. And when a character finds meaning in their surroundings, it signals a profound shift in consciousness. Andres is beginning to reconcile with his unconscious. He is waking up. And let's not forget about his therapist, Manuel. He's not just a professional. He represents the archetype of the guide, the wise inner teacher who appears when the disciple Andres is finally ready to face what they've avoided for so long. Manuel's presence is the catalyst. Andres's recurring dreams of trains, elevators, and doors are deeply symbolic. In Jung's framework, trains represent life's journey, its twists, turns, and unexpected stops. Elevators symbolize psychic ascension or descent, and doors represent new thresholds of consciousness. His unconscious is speaking, and Andres is now listening. Lucia, in this context, is not just a woman. She is an archetypal figure in his path. She is the embodiment of his anima, the inner feminine guiding his growth. The soul, dressed as a person. When Andres meets Lucia again and no longer feels that desperate pull when he can look at her without anxiety or longing, that's when integration has occurred. The projection has dissolved, and what remains is pure recognition. He no longer needs to possess her, to bind her to his story. He has become whole. From a therapeutic standpoint, this is authentic healing. Not forgetting the past, but accepting it. Not with disdain, but with transcendence. Andres doesn't deny what he felt. He honors it, but he no longer depends on it to feel complete. And that is what true closure looks like. Not with words, but with awareness. Erich Fromm said that love isn't just an easy feeling, it's a decision, a judgment, a promise. And in the end, Andres doesn't choose the love that excites him. He chooses the love that builds. He starts with himself. This leads us to an important truth. Not everything that shines is real love. Sometimes it's intensity. Sometimes it's emotional addiction. But real love is not about possession. It's about allowing each person to become more of themselves. This is what Jung would call a conscious relationship. Many people wonder, should I stay in this relationship? Is it bringing me closer to who I truly am? Jung would answer that question with another. Is this relationship bringing you closer to your truth, or is it pulling you away from it? If it's pulling you away, it's not destiny, it's emotional distraction. The most beautiful moment in Andres' story is not the reunion with Lucia. It's the moment when he writes, "I'm learning to know myself, just starting." Because that sentence is everything. It encapsulates humility, process, and truth. Jung would say that this is the first step toward individuation. When Andres turns his pain into words, into a blog, into anonymous reflections, he is doing the most powerful thing a wounded soul can do: share light, not from a place of perfection, but from the raw truth of what's lived and learned. And in that sharing, he becomes a symbol for others. Dear audience, maybe you've had a Lucia too. Maybe it still hurts. But the question isn't why they left, it's what part of you woke up because of them. What did you begin to see? What did they return to you that you had lost? What if that person came not to build a lasting relationship, but to help you rebuild yourself? Jung didn't speak of happy endings. He spoke of completed processes. Sometimes, that process ends with a goodbye. This message isn't here to make you suffer. It's here to help you understand, to help you take back your power, to stop giving it to people who cannot hold it. It's about transforming your narrative, making it one that comes from choice, not fear. As Jung said, knowing your darkness is the best way to deal with the darkness of others. And now, I want you to engage with this process. If this story has made you reflect, if it stirred something deep inside of you, leave this phrase in the comments: "I'm ready to stop seeking outside what I can only find within." Write your truth. Share your journey. This community is your space for transformation. As we reach the end of this reflection, take a moment to ask yourself, what have you learned about love, about yourself, about the relationships that shape your life? Remember, true love isn't about finding someone to complete you. It's about becoming whole on your own, so that when love arrives, it enhances your growth, not your need. I encourage you to pause and reflect on one key lesson from today's video that resonates with you. What have you learned, and how will you apply it in your own life? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you've learned and what you plan to practice moving forward. Your journey is personal, but sharing it can inspire others. If you liked this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content to guide you on your journey of self-discovery and growth. Thank you for being here. Remember, your love story starts with you. And when you're ready, the universe will send the right people to walk beside you. See you in the next video.